Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel called zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bara. We help and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. In today's video, we are going to look into one of your recommendations by Think School about how national logistics is going to change Indian economy. It is an older video, but I'm very curious because I know nothing about it. Yeah, I'm super curious to learn what we can find out in this video together. But before we do,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
I'm ready. Let's hit this.
Unveiled the government's National Logistics Policy 2022.
नेशनल लॉजिस्टिक पॉलिसी इसके पीछे 8 वर्षों की मेहनत है, नीतिगत बदलाव है, अहम निर्णय है।
हमारी एक्सपोर्ट अगर बढ़ाना है तो लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम करना है, और लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम करना है तभी मेक इन इंडिया और मेड इन इंडिया का हमारा सपना पूरा होने वाला है।
हमें विश्वास है कि इसके इम्प्लीमेंटेशन से लॉजिस्टिक्स कॉस्ट घटेगा, हमारा अंतर्राष्ट्रीय व्यापार बढ़ेगा और स्वाभाविक रूप से देश भी आत्मनिर्भर बनेगा।
Hi everybody, on 17th of September 2022, the Prime Minister of India made the grand announcement of the National Logistics Policy and the Unified Logistics Interface. And just like UPI revolutionized the payment industry of India, this policy is expected to revolutionize the entire logistics industry of India, including road, rail, waterways, and even air logistics. And more importantly, in this extremely competitive international market, it is expected to evolve India into a fierce competitor not just in Asia, but all across the world. But as usual, while most media houses have copy-pasted the Prime Minister's announcement of the NLP, very few of them have actually cared to explain how exactly will it transform the logistics industry of India. So in this case study, let's try to understand what are the current major hurdles in the Indian logistics industry that's pulling India behind. How will this system of national logistics policy and ULIP transform the logistics industry of India? What are the hurdles that can turn the same policy into a disaster? And most importantly, as students of business, what are the study materials to help you understand the evolving landscape of the logistics industry of India? This video is brought to you by Multiple, but more on this at the end of the video. To understand the national logistics policy, we first need to understand the problems associated with the logistics industry of India. And unfortunately, the reality is that in spite of it being a critical pillar of our economy, it's been a nightmare for Indian businesses. Now, if you look at the cost of transporting 1 metric ton of goods in India, it costs 18 rupees per metric ton per kilometer by air. By road, it's 3.6 rupees. And rail is by far the most economic mode of transport with just 1.6 rupees per metric ton per kilometer. So by the look of it, obviously, a large chunk of goods must be shipped by rail, right? Well, guess what? Around 71% of the goods in India are shipped by road and only 17.5% of them are shipped by rail. Similarly, only a small segment of trade is done through waterways. The question is, why? Well, that's because we don't have enough rails or trains to cater to the demand of the quantity of goods being transported in India. Secondly, both passenger and goods train in India run on the same track, with the passenger trains being given more preference over the goods train. So this results in delays. Thirdly, when you need to ship something by rail, you need to opt for a multimodal transport for last mile and first mile connectivity. As in, you'll have to ship your product from the factory to the train by truck, then unload and load it, get it shipped to a particular location, and then have another truck pick it up and then drop it to your warehouse. So when I spoke to the team of Udaan, which is a B2B trading platform, they pointed out that India currently lacks the infrastructure to seamlessly move the goods from a truck to the train. Secondly, let alone on-time arrival, they said that the security via rail is so low that it's not even a guarantee that your product will reach the destination safely. There is a problem of theft, rash handling, and no tracking facility at all. And as far as inland waterways is concerned, it involves a lot of approvals and certifications from different segments of the government that are neither connected nor modernized for fast processing. And the fun fact over here is that India's logistics sector has more than 20 government agencies, 37 export promotion councils, 500 certifications, and 10,000 commodities. So in short, you will spend more time in getting certifications than you will in actually shipping or producing the product itself. This is the reason why most of the companies opt in for road transport, whereby they simply rely on the trucks to go from point A to point B. But guess what? Even there, we have a ton of problems. Out of 30 billable days a month, most trucks run only for 15 to 16 days. So it's like when a fully loaded truck goes from Pune to Chennai, after reaching Chennai, because of a lack of a proper network, it takes a lot of time, in fact 1 to 3 days, to get a load back for the truck while coming back to Pune. So it either leads to delays, underutilization, or worst case, these trucks end up running empty. And if you look at the numbers, in India, trucks effectively travel about 300 kilometers per day compared to the global average of 500 to 800 kilometers per day. And the empty running rates in India is as high as 40%. So to transport the same amount of goods, it takes more time, more cost, and eventually results into less profit. Secondly, we have the problem with dependency on intermediaries. There are at least 2.5 intermediaries between the truck operator and a shipper while making a transaction. So the truckers lose 15 to 20% of their earnings to these agents before the final payment comes through. So again, the costs go up. And lastly, most of these truckers are far away from digitalization. These are just some of the many problems that we have with the logistics in India, because of which it's not just become costly and inefficient, but also slows down the progress of the huge consumer market that we have in India. And this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, the government is coming out with something called the National Logistics Policy. So the question is, what is the National Logistics Policy and how can it fix these problems? So as usual, let's try to understand it using a simple, relatable example. Let's say we have 5 major cities: Pune, Kochi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai. So today, a 10-ton container truck goes from Pune to Chennai, Pune to Kochi, Pune to Bangalore, and Pune to Hyderabad. Similarly, you have a 10-ton truck going from Chennai to Bangalore, Kochi, Pune, and Hyderabad, and so on and so forth. So to connect 5 cities together, there are 10 trucks needed. Now, like we saw, the problem over here is that when these trucks go from Pune to Chennai, it's not a guarantee that that truck will have a load to carry back. And same is the case with other trucks. This is what you call as the point-to-point model. But this is where a super optimized system could be used called the hub and spoke model. And here's how it works out. Instead of sending a truck from each city to every other city, one of these cities is made as a hub to transport the goods to all other cities. For example, in this case, let's say Bangalore becomes the hub. So now, to ship products from Pune to all other cities, instead of sending 4 different trucks to 4 different cities, only one truck will leave from Pune and it will carry all the goods to be sent to Kochi, Chennai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. So when it arrives in Bangalore, it will drop off its load at the Bangalore hub and get back to Pune. Similarly, another truck from Chennai will carry all the goods to Pune, Kochi, Bangalore, and Hyderabad and will drop it off eventually to go back. And same is the case with all other trucks coming from other cities. And now, once these trucks arrive at the Bangalore hub, here's where all the goods from Pune truck will be redistributed to the respective trucks going back to their respective cities. So goods to Chennai will be transferred to the Chennai truck, goods to Hyderabad will go to the truck that's going to Hyderabad, and same for the truck that came from Kochi. And obviously, the goods to Bangalore will be dropped off at the Bangalore hub itself. And now all these trucks will go back to their respective locations, fully loaded with the goods coming from 4 different destinations without going to 4 different destinations. And this system gives 3 incredible advantages to the road transportation of India. First of all, instead of 10 trucks, now you just need 4 trucks to transport your goods to 5 different cities from 5 different cities. Secondly, this system is so optimized that the likelihood of the trucks being full is way more than the point-to-point model. And more importantly, if the quantity of goods is more, then instead of a 10-ton truck, a 30-ton truck could be used, which is even more economical in terms of per ton per kilometer travel. And as a result of both these benefits, the cost of transportation would decrease by a large extent. But, as much as the system looks like a wonderful system, in real time, the execution of the system requires an extraordinary level of coordination, management, and cutting-edge logistics solutions. To tell you about it, firstly, if one of these trucks breaks down or gets delayed by an hour, it will lead to inefficiencies in the entire 5-truck system. Secondly, each truck comes from a different distance, so their time of arrivals will not be the same, because Pune to Bangalore takes 13 hours, Kochi to Bangalore takes 11 hours, and Hyderabad to Bangalore takes 10 hours. And just like we have layovers at the airport, these goods will either have to be kept in a warehouse, or there has to be a sophisticated algorithm that can match the shipments with the trucks in the most efficient manner possible, so that the time of storing these goods at the warehouse will be very less. So in short, this hub that we're talking about needs to be super duper efficient, needs to operate on a cutting edge computer algorithm that can optimize upon all the variables of delay. And most importantly, this digitalization process needs to be simple enough for the truck drivers to understand and transparent enough for the businesses to track their shipments. And by the way, this is still an oversimplified example wherein we have only a single mode of transport. In reality, if you want to put the multimodal method to test, we'll have 3 ships, 2 trucks, and 1 train arriving at the hub, and then the exchange of goods needs to be done in the most efficient and accurate manner. So the delays, permissions, passing time, breakdown, and hundreds of other variables will have to be considered. Furthermore, this will then get extended to international network also, as in the raw material will be shipped to India on a container vessel from Malaysia, Indonesia, and Kenya. And then it will travel within the country by rail to different factories, get processed, and then be brought to distribution centers all across the country by a truck. And finally, it will then be delivered to the store by a 3-wheeled goods vehicle where it is sold to a consumer. And all of this again requires a lot of optimization, digitalization, and coordination. And this is where we have something called Integrated Digital System for Logistics Services and the Unified Logistics Interface Platform. And here's where we'll be having all the stakeholders in a single unified interface by which all the stakeholders can manage, track, and offer their services. Nice. On top of that, we have 35 multimodal logistics parks coming up in various parts of the country. And like I told you about the Bangalore hub, these are going to be mega hubs that will act as centers for fleet aggregation, distribution, storage, and warehousing. These parks will also facilitate intermodal transportation, not just for roads, but also for railways and even inland waterways. And from what I could read from the policy papers, the government is actually intending to build a platform that will eventually become like a Make My Trip like app for logistics, or to some extent even Ola for porters. As in, you being a business owner, if you want to send something from one place to the other, if you enter the to and from data, the app will automatically show you the most optimized route to deliver your products. This will include all four modes of transport. So let's say you want to ship iron ore. Then the platform will automatically tell you that the most economical mode of transport for iron ore up to 400 to 500 kilometers is a slurry pipeline. Beyond 400 up to 1,200 kilometers is rail, and beyond 1,100 kilometers is coastal shipping. And wherever feasible, beyond 300 to 400 kilometers, you can even opt for inland waterways, which are more economical. So if you choose rail, just like Ola looks for a vacant cab, this logistics system will look for an available porter for a particular date and available time slot for a train, and another porter to carry it from the destination station to the client's warehouse. Meanwhile, if there is a halt in between where the goods have to be stored in a warehouse, you will also get to see the number and types of warehouses available. So if you're shipping apples, you will need to book a cold storage warehouse. If you're shipping chemicals, you will need a certain temperature control storage, and so on and so forth. And lastly, while moving from one state to the other, while moving from one mode of transport to the other, while moving from one warehouse to the other, you will need a dozen permission. Like I said, in the Indian logistics industry, you require a dozen certifications and permissions from different ministries that are not connected together. But in the unified logistics interface, it is expected that all the ministries will be tied together to make the process of permissions and certifications very, very easy. And this is just like how the passport offices have been modernized because of IT solutions. And lastly, we have the emergency and customer support for tracking and reporting, which is quite obvious. So let's skip it. This is what the National Logistics Policy envisions to achieve in the next 10 years, by which we are expected to fix a critical pillar of the Indian economy. And the goal is to reduce the logistics cost from 13 to 14% of the GDP to less than 10%. By the way, all these processes that we're talking about, they are already executed to a large extent by Amazon and Flipkart like companies in the organized sector. But that is less than 15% of the entire logistics industry of India. This system that we're talking about is about the rest of the 85% of the unorganized logistics industry of India. So this looks like a cakewalk, right? The government is spending millions into the development. The Prime Minister just made a grand announcement and everybody's happy that India will become a fierce competitor in the international market. So it's quite amazing, isn't it? Well, before we get too happy, let's move on to the most important part of the episode, and that is about the hurdles and pointers that, if not kept an eye on, can turn this entire policy into a... Moving on to the hurdles, firstly, the entire basis of this policy is that all the truckers and other transport operators will have access to the internet. But what we need to realize is that India has just truckers residing across 6 lakh villages in India, and we need more concentrated efforts to get them on board with a 4G internet connection, and that too when they are traveling. Secondly, we need to address the important factor of trust. Can the government have 24/7 emergency service available? Can these customers track their shipment through all modes of transport and reach out to the support team even at 3 a.m.? And finally, if this service is executed, will this service be available in the language of the truckers from 6 lakh villages? Thirdly, if this entire interface shapes up like UPI, that would be extraordinary. But if it turns out to be like IRCTC's website, then it's going to be a disaster. So do you realize if there's a mismatch of goods and extreme delays due to server problems, it will lead to a catastrophe in trade. Fourthly, we have infrastructure targets to be achieved before we build this logistics system in India, which includes 2 lakh kilometers of highways, 17,000 kilometers of pipeline networks, 120 airports, and 4G connectivity to 6 lakh villages. I'll give you the checklist in the description, so keep an eye on whether the government really works on this or just is using this policy as a marketing gimmick. And lastly, we need a lot of center-state coordination. And like we've seen before, this tussle often puts politics ahead of development, resulting into delays and losses. So we can just hope that we...
Okay, so I believe this is it for today's video. Now, it's very impressive, very impressive. I'm like, wow, all these minds, they're putting it together. Like, I'm thinking, oh, all these super smart people, who are they? But you know what he's mentioned about whether it be gimmick or something that actually will properly, materialize. And it seems like there is so much that needs to happen for this to actually take place. So how do you perceive that policy? Do you see this as a gimmick, or do you think that this is actually realistically going to happen? It feels like a lot has to happen, like a lot of infrastructure has to be built. So is this happening? Is this going to happen? How do you see that happening? Please pop it in the comments below. Thank you so much. With that being said, for enlightening me on your country and sharing your knowledge with me. It's highly appreciated. And thank you so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy it, please give a thumbs up, share a like, and subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you next one. Until then, please do take care. Sending much love. Bye-bye.